I'm basically, a one-woman band and just making it happen.
Our guest this week is Paige Hubbard. She is an MMJ, which stands for multimedia journalist, meaning she shoots, writes, edits her own stories. We've talked about this before in some of the earlier episodes of Outlet Podcast because that's how I started out my career as well. So she's a one-person band. She's just getting her start in the TV news industry. She's at a station in Beaumont, Texas, and she's aware of the uphill battle she has ahead of her.
When I don't have a photog and I'm going into a considerably bad neighborhood, it is a concern. You don't know what you're going to be met with.
She's passionate about achieving her goals, even in such an uncertain and struggling industry.
I'm never complacent. In college, the goal was, okay, get a job in your field. And now that I'm accomplished that, it's okay, get a job in a bigger market. So for me, it's just my desire to continue to better myself and be better who I was the day before.
I wanted to have her on as a guest because so many people still don't realize all of the behind the scenes that go on to get you the finished product that you see on the TV at the end of the day. The president met with congressional leaders. Doctors will start implanting the devices. And he heard that warning from the Coast Guard tonight. For now, we're live in Orlando. For now, we're live in Dallas. We're live in Boston tonight. Caitlin McCulley, 7 News 19. I'm Caitlin McCulley. I left my job as a TV news reporter in a pandemic to try to find a better way to share stories that matter, no BS. Thanks for listening to Outlet Podcast. You can download new episodes each week. Here's Paige Hubbard. You're very unapologetically like yourself. You're always telling the real deal about how it is behind the scenes and what it's like to do your job.
Yeah, for sure. So I am a reporter for KFDM and Fox 4 News out of Beaumont. I am an MMJ/reporter. And as you know, being a fellow news journalist, that no day is ever the same. Beaumont is a little smaller than a Houston or a Boston market. So we don't have a lot of breaking news, but typically I like to come in with stories already pitched if I haven't pitched one for the previous day, because some days I like to work ahead. Mm-hmm. And some days I do have the luxury of having a photog. Some days I do not. On those days, I set up my own stories. I go out, I shoot them, I write them, I edit them. Essentially, I am doing everything by myself, everything what it takes to get that package on air for the day. It's all coming from, these hands. So I like to share and just be transparent on my Instagram and social media platforms because I heard the term MMJ, MSJ, as some shops call them in college, but no one actually really showed me what it was actually going to be like. So I just feel, sometimes younger people that want to get in this industry, younger professionals, they just look at it like, oh, I can just stand in front of a camera and be cute and the furthest thing from the truth. So yeah, I'm basically, a one-woman band and just making it happen.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? And how'd you end up at your current job?
I am from Houston, Texas. I'm a through and through Texan. I went to Lamar High School down the street from the Galleria, if y'all are familiar with the Houston area. And for college, I went to the illustrious Texas Southern University and got my degree in broadcast journalism. I never woke up and said that I wanted to become a journalist. It was just something that kind of was introduced to me. My best friend has a really good colleague that works at CNN. And so a couple of summers ago, she took me there and I've just fell in love, with being in the newsroom. And then I ended up getting an internship at Fox 26. I was a serial interner, as I say, in college, because I literally interned everywhere. KPRC, Fox 26, Channel 11. And I ended up working briefly at Channel 11 on the assignments desk, but that's another story for another day. But it was just something that was kind of introduced to me as I navigated throughout my life and I was finding out, what I really wanted to do. I met one of my professors who helped, foster that passion out of me. And it's just been a snowball, effect up until this point.
And so what motivates you? I mean, you work a lot. MMJs work a lot. And I know in any market really, especially sometimes the smaller stations, there's less staff. You're doing a lot of jobs, as you said, probably working long hours. What keeps you going and motivates you during your day?
Honestly, I would have to say, like, I motivate myself. I'm so fiery and passionate, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm never like complacent. In college, the goal was, okay, get a job in your field. And now that I'm accomplished that, it's okay, get a job in a bigger market. So for me, it's just my desire to continue to better myself and be better who I was the day before. That's what keeps me going. And just, of course, my faith. I'm a woman of God, and my family. Those are also factors. But I'm just a little ball of energy. I'm just, even on my days where I'm like low energy, I'm just always kind of like upbeat and in high spirits. So yeah.
What's your least favorite shift that you've worked, and what's your favorite shift?
When I was at the assignments desk, at KHOU, I worked like a 3:15 to like 11 o'clock. And it was like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Like it took up my entire weekend. And so I prayed for a job with, more money. Cause at the time I was at like a smaller station, not a lot of money. And God blessed me with that, but it was behind the scenes, and I didn't have a social life. And it's important to have that work-life balance in this industry because we deal with so much. But my favorite shift would have to be the shift that I'm on now, because I work Monday through Friday, 9:15 to 6:15, and I'm off on the weekends. So I get to, come home and see my family, which is very important to me.
That's awesome. Going back to the requirements and workload of an MMJ, are you going live by yourself, or do you have a photographer meeting you to go live?
No, thankfully, I have a photog that conducts my live shots for me. I know that there are some shops where they have to go live by yourself, and I don't mind shooting my stories. But I feel like sometimes it stifles your creativity because you just kind of have to move and be stagnant. I mean, you can do a little walk and talk, or a little, right here behind me, or check this out. But I'm really thankful that I do have a photog, because it gives me a little bit more time to shine, if you will, in my live shots.
Mm-hmm. And you can show more of what's going on. The other issue with, and I know some stations have required MMJs to go live, is there's a big safety issue with that too, especially if you're, working by yourself at night. Your attention is on that live shot. You're trying to get all the equipment together. You're making sure that the producers can hear you. You've got a lot on your mind. And so it's hard to be aware of your surroundings in those kinds of situations. Have you been in a situation where you felt unsafe?
Actually, not as an MMJ. Thankfully, this is why I always go back to God. He really keeps his hands on me and keeps me safe and protected. But there was a situation when I did have a photog with me. We were covering a Brangus cattle show. It's something similar to the rodeo like we have in Houston. But this was the first time it was done in the middle of a pandemic. So my producer sent me out there just to see how the event organizers were handling themselves navigating through this event under a pandemic. And so I didn't feel comfortable going out and like busting somebody out, if you will. But I mean, it is our job to say, this is going on, this is what's not going on. So long story short, nobody in the building had on a mask. Like literally my photog and I were the only two people that were masked up. And so I was just like, okay, let's just get in and get out, because we're in an enclosed space. It was something similar to like a NRG stadium, or that was the arena that we. And so, I come back to the station, and so I'm talking to these people, and I feel their passion about, their cattle, and the event gave them, a sense of normalcy during a time where so many lives have been, interrupted, and they were just so happy to be there. I didn't feel comfortable just making it solely about them not having on masks.
Right.
So I I tried to balance it like, yeah, they weren't wearing masks, but event organizers say that, they're going to tighten up tomorrow, and, they really have a passion for this cattle. So basically my managers, my producers felt like we don't really care about boy meets cattle, or we don't really care about that. We are here to, see if these people are being safe or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so they basically took the story, reconstructed it, and made it about them not wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
And then they sent me back out there the same day, and I was met with just complete hostility. People were being so rude. They were following me around, recording me, blocking the shots, cursing at us. It was just a very aggressive environment. And so when you get in those type of situations, you have to, it's bigger than me. It could have been anybody, and
Mm-hmm.
so I just feel like you always have to remain professional and just stay grounded. And I always say, never let them see you sweat, never get flustered. But especially in this climate, it's a very difficult time for, journalists right now in this country. And so I would just encourage, people to stay steadfast and don't feed into the drama, because our job and our duty is really way bigger than all of that nonsense.
That's very well said.
People like combating or trying to make me defend, journalism, and comparing, maybe a Fox versus a CNN. But again, I try not to get into all of that, because the trolls are going to troll, going to keep on rolling. So
where did you get that good attitude about it? I mean, that's a lot. That's one thing that, especially journalists starting out in this industry, you got to learn over time, and not everyone has thick skin when you start out. Where does that come from for you?
I am not sure. I just think it's my natural nature. I always say that my personality, like, this is what I was born to do, because I feel like who I am as a person outside of my professional hat, it complements me as a journalist, because I do have really thick skin. I grew up in a house full of, very opinionated women. So if someone tells me they don't like my lipstick for the day, I'm like, girl, I just let that roll off. But I think it has a lot to do with, my upbringing, again, my foundation in God, and just always trying to stay positive. Honestly, that's just one of my biggest mantras, because life is, very difficult sometimes, as it already is. And I just feel like you don't want to couple that with a negative mindset and, just make it worse. I always just, encourage people to see the glass half full versus half empty. Even in this pandemic, I know a lot of people have suffered great losses versus, whether it being family or jobs, or, I've just been very blessed. And so I just focus on the positive, honestly, Caitlin.
Mm-hmm. That's it. It's so important. It's so important. And that doesn't mean, that you have to be happy all the time, but it's just your overall outlook and what you're choosing to see. Yeah, I totally agree with that. So in this industry, we're talking about a lot of changes and a lot of criticism of the media, that kind of thing. But as far as the business model of this industry, are you concerned just getting into this and being new? Are you concerned with where it's going and the fact that a lot of companies are buying out lots of local news stations and newspapers are going away? Are you concerned with all of the changes in the industry, or do you feel like no matter how things shake out, that there will be a place for journalists?
I think it's kind of both. It is a little concerning because, back in the day, I'm pretty sure you can contest to, you used to have a professional to do the writing, the editing. There were so many bodies in the newsroom, and now that has completely changed. I mean, I'm an MMJ. I write, I shoot, I do my own things. And so it is a little like, okay, it makes me feel uncertain sometimes, but I do feel like, journalism has such a huge role in our country and our democracy, and just the way we navigate. I do feel like there will always be a place for journalists.
Mm-hmm. And are you tied to broadcast journalism, or do you feel like no matter the platform that you would be interested in it, or are you still kind of figuring that out?
I am tied to broadcast. I would encourage all young professionals who want to get into this industry, because it's so multifaceted, to try print, try radio, try TV. And I had the opportunity to do all of those things, and I fell in love with broadcast journalism. So, yeah, I'll definitely, the TV realm is more so of my speed.
What is it about the medium that you're drawn to?
I just think that everything that goes into it, you have to go out and connect with people on a daily basis. You have to be a go-getter. You have to be knowledgeable and speak well and present facts to people, and look good while you're doing it. TV is a part of looks. And so I like the idea of getting dressed up and informing the public on information that they need to be informed on. It makes me feel like I have a social responsibility, and even when I'm not at work, I have to carry myself a certain way, because essentially I represent a company. So I just feel like it's a lot of responsibility, and I signed up for it. So yeah.
What is the hardest part about your job?
Oh, logging sound. No. The hardest part, I would say, is just the deadline. Sometimes it could be very stressful. Sometimes things fall apart. Interviews don't come through. Just getting it on air, sometimes it takes a lot of work. And that's why I always say it's so much that happens behind the scenes versus you just getting on camera looking pretty. It's like, it's so many hard details behind the scenes that go on that people really don't know about. But yeah, just the act of it all. It's a thrill, but it's also like, oh my gosh, like it's 3:30 and this has to be.
Am I gonna make it?
Yeah. So like, is the package gonna make it? It's so meeting the deadlines is it freaks me out sometimes.
Well, and I know also because I was an MMJ reporter in Houston too. So I know how hard it can be when you're trying to drive your car to the location, you're navigating, you're getting calls from the producers asking about where your story is going. You're trying to set up your next interviews. It's a lot. And also in the summer in Texas, it's really hot. So like you're running around through all this sweating, and then you got to try to act like you haven't been carrying around all your equipment and look presentable on TV at the end of all of it.
And sometimes just being, a little petite woman like myself out in different neighborhoods, you get, guys, trying to hit on you while you're trying to do your job. I know that may sound very trivial, but, while you're trying to focus, it is, sometimes a concern.
No, absolutely. And especially having been there when I was first starting out too, I used to wear a fake wedding ring at times because I just got so many comments from people like lugging around all that gear. And, you're like you said, you're trying to do your job and you're carrying all the stuff and you're focused on what you're doing. And, if you're by yourself and people come by, they say all kind of things. I'm sure I don't have to tell you what they'll say, but yeah, I got to the point where I was like, I'm just going to wear a fake wedding ring. And so it gave me an easy way to be like, sorry, I'm
glad about me a fake wedding ring tomorrow. So I don't have an issue anymore.
Isn't that silly though? The fact that like, this is 2021 now and people still aren't used to women doing this job.
For sure. And sometimes I don't know if the word sexist is the right word to use, but I feel like if it was a man doing all of that, it wouldn't be such a shock or a surprise. I always get, where's your cameraman? And I'm like, you're looking at her, honey, I'm right here. So that's also part of some of the challenges, being a woman, carrying all of that equipment around. And then sometimes I feel like, do people take me serious when they see me with all this equipment and it's just me, but I get over that knowing about, how professional I am and how I execute. So it's
Absolutely.
a challenge.
It is a challenge. And I remember, these are bringing back stories and memories for me too. I remember my first job in Alabama. It was before we had smaller cameras. So I had the gigantic, I don't remember what that thing was called. It was Panasonic, huge camera, huge tripod, lugging that around. And I was so concerned with how seriously I would be taken in Alabama that I still did that in heels. I wore heels doing that, which is so dumb because it's like you're carrying all this equipment. It's so bad, so bad for you. But I, as a woman doing that job, it's like, especially in the South, I feel like, sometimes men don't take you seriously if you're going in to interview somebody in a courthouse or, where everyone else is dressed up and you feel like you need to be, but at the same time, you're doing physical labor, really.
I'm so happy that you mentioned that because you made a post about that some months ago. I want to say when I first maybe started MMJing because, I feel like you also have to look the part. And so I was ruining like my good pairs of heels because like you, I wanted to be taken seriously. And so you making that post, you were kind of reflecting on where you were in that phase in your life, and you posted a picture of you and you were like, this is when I had to wear heels, and I thought that would make me be taken seriously. And so seeing that post inspired me to be like, okay, well, I can wear flats and still be okay. At the end of the day, those are all cosmetic details, and I feel like as long as I'm executing professionalism, I'm kind, and I'm gracious when I do it. I pull together the right story that is really going to impact our viewers and give them that information that they need. That's essentially what's most important.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to hear that helped you in some way.
Yeah.
Do you think so? What camera do you use now?
So I use a very small camera. I don't know the name of it, but it's probably like no bigger than this. I can send you a picture if you want. Because I took a picture of me holding all of my gear. If you want to edit that in.
Yeah, sure.
My tripod is rather large. It's as tall as me. I'm a very tiny person. I'm only 4'11". So it can be a struggle. You have your camera, and it's not like those big photo cameras that the big photographers use, because they use different gear than the MMJ. So it doesn't have the convenience of a strap. It's just a held camera. And so it's essentially my camera is in one hand, my tripod is over my shoulder, and I still have to have, my mics and all of that equipment. So what I've learned to do now is wear a little backpack or a little satchel, and I put my mics in there so I can have my hands free, camera in one hand, tripod in the other. But it's a relatively big tripod.
Yes. That's a good idea to have a little satchel. I remember just trying to clip a microphone onto my waistband, stuff things in my pockets. My whole pants were like hanging down because it was so weighed down by like batteries and everything else that I might need. Yeah, there are some stations now that are using iPhones. Like I know a lot of Spectrum TV stations are letting their MMJs just go around with iPhones. Have you thought about doing that, or is that a conversation that's happening at your station?
Sometimes we do implement using a iPhone to tell a story. In college, actually, our professors were really big on us shooting packages off of our phones. That would be some of my homework assignments because, iPhones are so incredible. They have that iMovie feature to where you can film movies. Spike Lee actually is what inspired that assignment because he shot an entire movie off of his iPhone. Mm-hmm. But for me personally, sometimes I can be a little old school. So I think I do prefer the camera because I've been in situations where I've interviewed people with my phone, and I feel like they're so used when a news organization or a reporter comes out, they're used to like the big camera crew and the big camera. So it kind of goes back to that being taken seriously thing. I want to make sure that, they see that I have a professional presence, not only within myself and my persona, but also with my equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like they would think it's almost, insulting if you show up with just an iPhone or like, well, who are you? I thought I was getting a real reporter or a real, it's enough already that you don't have a photographer to lend that legitimacy to your presence. But I think people are getting more and more used to seeing just one person with being the reporter and the photographer.
For sure. And that's the good thing because it's practice that's being rolled out across news stations, across the country. So I feel like now some folks are a little bit more receptive to it.
What are your goals in the industry?
Honestly, I feel like for me, I want to build a legacy. I want to build an empire. I feel like my journalism career is a vehicle to something much greater. And that's why I really wanted to be a part of, what you have going on, because I really respect what you're doing. And essentially, I want to have something similar of my own platform, whether it be a media broadcasting company, a media consultation company. I mean, journalism is my passion. So I would always want to stay active in that field in some form of, fashion. But I also want to be an entrepreneur. I want to own restaurants. I want to have businesses. So I feel like there's a lot in store for my future. Right now, my main goal is just to get through the first 2 years of this reporting contract in Beaumont, Texas, and hope I can come back home, or, God can take me somewhere higher. But yeah, I have a lot in store for myself.
That's awesome. How far along on your contract are you?
I make a year on the 27th of this month.
Okay. So you still got a little while, but I know how contracts go, and you're already making some plans and planting some seeds as you go along.
Yes, ma'am. As I said, sanitize and strategize. And I am being very strategic right now because the year is going to fly by so quickly.
Yeah. So any advice to people just getting into this industry?
I am from Houston, and I moved to Beaumont to better myself. And so in the beginning, I was driving back and forth from Houston to Beaumont. This is the point I want to make about the importance of being in the community. And I felt like I wasn't embedded enough because I would get off work and hit I-10 and go home, so I made the decision to move to Beaumont, make it my address while I'm here. And that's also a challenge for someone like me who is very close with their family. And I went to college in Houston. I was born and raised in Houston. I mean, my entire life is in Houston. So it's been a huge transition for me coming to Beaumont, but it's been very refreshing personally and professionally. And I would encourage everybody to move away, but sometimes it's a little difficult being away from home. And I would encourage, aspiring reporters, journalists, producers, whomever, I would encourage them to keep that in mind. This is an industry where, as you know, you have to relocate. And so make sure that you just don't want to get into a newsroom, but you want to get into a newsroom that aligns with your goals and, with what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. And I would add on to that too, keeping in mind your interest too, because a lot of these stations, it's just nothing against them, but it's just how they operate. No one's looking out for your best interest. You have to be the one to look out for your best interest and to, like you said, make sure that what you're doing is meeting your own goals, and especially safety. I come back to that a lot especially with MMJs. I think early in my career, I would say, I did a lot of things that, looking back on it, I'm like, man, that was not safe. Like, I should not have gone and knocked on that door of the convicted criminal by myself. I should not have driven out in tornado warnings at night in the rain by myself. And there are things that I think you got to draw the line too, while, and especially when you're young, wanting to prove yourself and show that you're capable. I think a lot of times that adrenaline can get in the way of safety, when normally, outside of the situation, you'd probably be like, wait a minute, this isn't so safe. But yeah, for people getting into the industry, that I think that's so important.
That's a great point, because, we have to do a lot of door knocking in this industry. And when I don't have a photog and I'm going into a considerably bad neighborhood, it is a concern. You don't know what you're going to be met with. One day I had somebody very unpleasant open up the door and, started going off on me. And I'm just like, hey, I'm just trying to do my job. So there are a lot of challenges of being an MMJ, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I really love what I do. I don't want to sound cheesy or Miss America pageant-ish, but this industry requires a lot of hard work. But once that finished product is, turned in, it really makes it all worth it. I would say be intentional about your goals. And going back to a point I made previously, try out all the different areas this field has to offer, and don't let the hard days get you down. There are going to be times where there are challenges, there are obstacles. Right now, as you said, it's a very tense climate for journalists, but remember why you got into this industry and let that ground you, and don't allow other people to project their fears or shortcomings on yourself. You really just have to remember your why, and you have to keep that going, and don't let anybody try to talk you out of your dream, because it was placed inside of you for a reason. So people may not understand it, when you're telling them these are your goals, and that's okay. I would just really encourage all young professionals to just be serious and be intentional, and protect the relationships that you build. I've met a lot of great people along this industry that's helped me to get to the point where I am today, and just be passionate and purposeful.
Awesome. Paige, where can people find you on Instagram or social media?
They can find me at THE_Paige Hubbard, PAIGE _brand.
All right. Paige, I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.